Love is in the air. Isn't it that time of year when we are looking for holiday rom-coms? I know I am. And I got to tell you, when I saw Donald Trump gaze up at Zohran Mamdani on Friday in the Oval Office, I asked myself, what holiday movie does that remind me of? So let's take a look. Let's watch that. Here we go.
Please.
Mr. President, Republican Elise Stefanik has campaigned multiple times by calling Zohran Mamdani a jihadist. Do you think you're standing next to a jihadist right now in the Oval Office?
No, I don't. But she's out there campaigning, and you say things sometimes in a campaign.
Isn't that sort of
She's a very capable person, but you really have to ask her about that. But I don't particularly. I think I met with I met with a man who's a very rational person. I met with a man who really wants to see New York be great again. And I can say again, because New York was great. You know, when
Okay. Donald Trump and the entire Republican Party has been attacking Muslim Americans, attacking immigrants. Elise Stefanik has called him a jihadi. All of that is terrible. But Donald Trump is all about star power and charisma. And I don't know what they talked about. I have some ideas. But he knows someone who is not going to take it from a bully. All these people who think the way they are going to make progress with Donald Trump, who think that succumbing, appeasing will work. He just sees a mark. He just sees weakness. Now, let's be clear. It's more than that. Just standing up to Donald Trump is not going to get him to fall in love with you. There is something about Zohran. Let me play another clip for you.
Jeffries, have to follow his lead.
well, look,
Wait.
Leader Jeffries, have to.
Oh, look, I got to look at this. Look at that smile. I need you to see the posture. First of all, Donald's sitting at the desk, right? And normally when you're seated and someone has to stand, that can create an interesting power dynamic, like you are at their service. Zohran could have been looking down at Donald all the time, but he didn't. He's standing ahead. His posture is authoritative, but relaxed with his hands clasped. Almost, it has a confidence, respectful with the hands clasped, not defiant with them on the hips, all of it very natural. And then we have Donald Trump looking up at Mamdani. You notice that Donald's covering his right hand, which is where he has that perennial bruise. You also see Mamdani covering his right hand. I don't think it's a mirroring effect. I just think it's a very different situation. And Donald is looking up at him with the biggest smile. I don't think I've seen that smile. And that is a genuine smile. You know, Donald's fake smile, that he makes, that's a fake smile. He is looking up with an admiration at Mamdani. And let's listen to this clip.
Leader Jeffries, have to follow his lead.
well, look, I hope they have great leaders. This is a man that right now I think is focused on New York City. I really think he has a chance to do a great job. We're going to help him, but I really think he has a chance to do a great job. But I'll let you answer that. Do you consider yourself the leader of the Democrats?
Okay. The question he's asked is whether, Rep. Jeffries, who only endorsed Mamdani at the last minute, who is obviously the House Minority Leader and a congressman from New York City. The press is asking about that. And Donald says something interesting, which reveals perhaps what their conversation was about, that Zohran is focused on New York City. And that Donald said, I'm going to help him, is huge. Before they had this meeting, which Mamdani asked for, Donald was relentlessly mocking him, calling him a communist, saying he was going to destroy New York and all these things. And even when Mondami asked for a meeting, he was kind of mocking it and belittling him. But look at what he's saying. Somehow, something happened in their meeting where Mondami said, and I think it's what he said publicly, look, we don't agree with each other, but let's focus on our shared interest. Look, Mondami is elected. He's a mayor-elect of New York City. He needs his plans to work. We need his plans to work. I believe in his form of governing as he has described it. I want to see it in action. I want New York City and the entire country to be affordable for all, to create shared prosperity. I think there needs to be more free transportation. I live in Detroit. I love that there's a trolley line that I can hop on for free. I think it's great for everybody. I probably can, I could afford to pay a fare to hop on something, but the fact that I don't have to do that means that, everybody can share this space. And it also means people can get to jobs, and employers, know that people can show up on time, even when they don't have a credit card or cash on hand to get on transportation. There's also other issues. Remember, Zoran was talking about maybe having city-owned grocery stores. These ideas that Zoran talks about, as despicable as Donald Trump is, and I'm not going to say anything good about Trump. I'm just observing that the accusations against Zoran Mondami of wanting socialism, and I think he wants a mixed economy like we already have, right? We already have Social Security, et cetera. We already have public roads. Most of them in a lot of the country are not toll roads. You take them for free, but there are already a lot of government services. He just wants to expand them where we need them the most, which will help everybody, including businesses, but especially people who are being left out in our society. And he's been absolutely clear that Mondami wants to tax the rich more. And guess what? They are not leaving New York. They're not. They threaten to. Even Bill Ackman is trying to get a meeting with Zoran, saying, I want to work with you. Okay, so there's that. But what I want to make clear is that Donald Trump has done more in the top-down kind of socialist style than any president since FDR. I mean, Donald Trump, remember, he has a government take a percentage of private, and I say private, publicly held, but for-profit, private, not public sector businesses, right? This is what he does. He is railing on about the greedy insurance companies. Even though his healthcare plan is moronic, he gets absolutely how much senior management at these insurance companies are taking, and how they're squeezing policyholders. He gets that the defense industry's number one customer is the government, and that they should be grateful for the government, and wants to take a piece of the equity. Now, listen, guys, I'm not endorsing what Donald Trump is saying. What I am saying is whatever happened in that room, Zoran was doing what I think he does best, which is lay on the charm and actually talk about what interests they share in common. Zoran does not want ICE in New York. And I'm sure he was clear about that. So let's continue on this. When Donald Trump says, I don't know about Hakeem Jeffries, but this guy is a real leader. I think what Trump can see is obviously the numbers. It's unbelievable how much people tried to defeat this man. He wins the ranked choice primary. And then Cuomo, right? You remember this, decides he's going to run as an independent. And then we had also another independent, and then we had Curtis Lewa running as the Republican candidate. And they got everyone, right, Eric Adams, the current mayor. Everyone was going to split the vote out. So everyone drops out but Sliwa. And still, Mondami handily won. Donald Trump likes to back winners. That's what it is. Okay, so I'm cynical about Trump, but I love, of course, that Mondami understands power. Let's face it, Trump is a dangerous, demented man who takes revenge on his enemies. And Mondami, for some reason, he doesn't see his enemy because Mondami probably said, let's make a deal. I wonder if he walked into the room and just said that, let's make a deal. I don't know. Okay, let's play this next part about, this is the same clip about where Trump is smiling up at Mondami and now saying, you asked him about Jeffries.
I think it's more appropriate for him.
I consider myself the next mayor of New York City, and I keep my horizons firmly on New York City, and I appreciate the meeting with the president, which focused again on the 5 boroughs and whether New Yorkers could afford to live there.
By the way, being the mayor of New York City is a big deal.
Absolutely.
I always said, one of the things I would love to be someday is the mayor of New York City. Being the mayor of New York, and especially now, because I think you're at really a turning point, one way or the other. It could go great, or it can go in a different direction. And I think you really have a chance to make it great. I appreciate what you're saying.
Mr. President, you say you love New York.
That slap on the hand? Oh my God, it was like a father and a son. He was looking at Mondami probably the way Fred Trump Sr. looked at Donald. I know that there is no one in the Trump family or in the Trump constellation that Donald has ever admired or looked at that way. J.D. Vance does not have the riz, right? Does not have charisma, not J.D. Vance. Stephen Miller is always telling Trump what to do, and Trump is into it, and it's disgusting what he wants to do. But let's remember, Zohran is a Muslim immigrant, and Donald Trump has patted him on the hand and smiled up at him sincerely. And his base is freaking out. Now, I've got a little bit more because this is a little bit more about the love story. Let me share this with you. Okay. This is incredible. Let's go.
I want to ask the mayor-elect about a House resolution just passed overwhelmingly to condemn socialism, including with 86 Democrats, all of House Dem leadership, and the minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries, despite his endorsement of you. What's your reaction to that?
I have to be honest with you, I focused very little on resolutions. Frankly, I've been focusing...
Condemn socialism.
I understand. I think the focus is on the work at hand. I can tell you I am someone who is a democratic socialist. I've been very open about that. And I know there might be differences about ideology, but the place of agreement is the work that needs to be done to make New York City affordable. That's what I look forward to.
And I want to clarify your answer to Stephen Nelson. He asked about your comment calling the president a fascist. And your answer was, both President Trump and I have been clear about our positions and our views. Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
Mr. President.
Oh my God. Now, don't try this at home. I'm not sure. I doubt if a woman went out there, she could accomplish that too, but maybe. The difference between, and let me just be clear, and I'm going to get to my rom-com thing. Remember when my governor, Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan, went to the White House because she had some serious concerns she needed to deal with. And it wasn't just concerns about tariffs and the impact on the Detroit economy, but there's something involving an invasive algae or something in the Great Lakes. I don't know what it was, but it was important for her to be at the White House. And she didn't know, it was going to be a little private meeting. She didn't know they were going to put her in front of the camera. And remember that when she was there, and she basically went like this, like she tried to hide her head behind a folder. And I understand that because she would be so severely judged. But then people were saying, why was she there sucking up to Trump? She should tell him F you and all this stuff. My view is you stand in your own skin. You don't do things that you are not proud of. Don't hide. And this is unfortunately what too many of us do. We get defensive. And Donald Trump actually handed it to Zohran. I mean, because he does think Trump is a fascist because Trump is. Now, they didn't ask him, do you think Trump is mentally equipped to be president? I think his answer would be, I'm not here to analyze him. I'm here to work with him. We have some shared interests, and continue to criticize him when you want to. So again, I'm not sure if it could work for a woman. What I will tell you is fake doesn't work. Real works. And unfortunately, what also works, unfortunately, what also doesn't work is listening to people like James Carville, who is still on the wrong track here. No charisma. Democrats still listen to him. But let's talk about this love fest. And I'm going to show you this picture right here. When I looked at this big smile, I thought, my God. And everyone was like, oh my God, Trump loves him. But then it was bigger than that. Donald Trump, after the meeting, put up on his Truth Social a series of photos of Donald Trump. And it's absolutely crazy. I need to, I think, show you this because then we can get to the movie. So if you thought that Donald Trump after this was going to be like, oh, I'm so embarrassed that I met with this fool, I put one over on him, you're going to be wrong about that, right? His love affair with this guy is strong. I'm going to show you what he put up on his True Social site. It's a series of photos. And one of the photos is the two of them posing in front of a portrait of FDR, of Roosevelt, that he put up, he said, so Mondami could see it because maybe someone who works for Trump knew how much he, I don't know, how much he appreciated Roosevelt. So I've got this for you right now, and I want to make sure that you can see this. This is Donald Trump's True Social site, and it's really going to help us decide what film this is. So I saw this. This really is it. Up in the left-hand corner, Donald with his fake smile, but we've seen real ones earlier, and Mondami posing in front of FDR. You've got the shot. If you're going clockwise to the right, you can see that backed up. And then the bottom left-hand corner is Mondami, just him standing there. And then my favorite one is the two of them looking out wistfully from, it looks like this is the colonnade. It looks like that's the colonnade between the Oval Office and the residence. And they're just staring out at what used to be, it appears to be, maybe used to be the Rose Garden. You can't quite see that this is cemented over. Those photos show in imagery, paint a picture of something. Now, part of it might be, as you know, that since Chuck Schumer never endorsed Mondami, and neither did Kristen Gillibrand, the two senators from New York, and the fact that he's a lot of an outsider, I think Trump likes that. But first, before the analysis, let's talk about the movie. So what are the Christmas movies that you like? Let me tell you, one of my favorites that you may never have heard of is called Holiday. It's a black and white film, despite this color movie poster, starring Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant. It is, I got to tell you, one of my favorites. I think I want to watch it again, Michael. I don't know if you would be into this, but I won't tell you too much about it. I don't know spoilers, but the premise of this film is that Katharine Hepburn and her sister, well, Katharine Hepburn's sister is engaged to be married to a wealthy guy, and they are going on some kind of cruise to celebrate this event. That's all I remember. And things go awry from there. And, it's lovely. I feel like it has socialist undertones. It's very much it's sort of a Gilded Age film, and the wealthy elite versus populism is right there in that film. So Holiday was one of the options that I was trying to think of a way to, talk about the bromance between Trump and Mamdani with Holiday. What's another Holiday film? Well, there's Bridget Jones' Diary, Donald Trump's diary, the president's daily diary. I don't know. This is obviously a holiday film. And so there you go. I'm not sure. I guess you would put Donald Trump in the center, and you would have Colin Firth would be the Zoran. And I don't know, maybe Elise Stefanik would be the Hugh Grant. I'm not sure. Oh, maybe the Hugh Grant would be Stephen Miller, right? So you've got Donald Trump in the center, maybe Stephen Miller on one side, and you could have Zoran Mandami on the other. And then, of course, I got to where I landed, Love Actually. Why Love Actually? Because I like the idea of Zoe Actually, and also that montage, the photos of Donald Trump that he put up on his website, plus the ones that I love. I thought I could turn those into a Love Actually poster. So get ready for it. It's the new rom-com we didn't know we needed. It's called Zoe Actually, the ultimate romantic comedy. I'm loving it, you guys. I really am. Okay, now, before I turn to the money and law news, because we have quite a bit of it, let me tell you what I think is really important about Zoran's candidacy. And it's not about democratic socialism working everywhere right away. It's about the idea of what are the end goals that we have for the society? What do we want American life to be? How do we want American communities and families and businesses and the arts and health to flourish? What does it mean to have a good society? Those are the goals. That's how we should start. Instead of people coming in, which is, I think, I'll speak about the Republican Party first and then maybe mainstream Democrats. Instead of coming in with I'm in here because my patrons put me here, my donors put me here to cut taxes, right? The Republican view, and a lot of people who voted for Trump's view, is all government is bad. Let's make it smaller and I'll pay less taxes. That can't be the right view. The Democratic view should be government actually functions and helps redistribute wealth where it needs to be, encourage and fund certain business enterprises, create a social safety net, help regulate the banking system, which is subsidized. There's a lot of things that a government can do and should do with the end goals in mind. Shouldn't be just winning elections, but should be the goals, right? And what we end up with is these people like James Carville saying the answer is, he looks at Zoran Mandami, the Muslim immigrant who is who presents himself and sees himself as a diverse brown candidate, right? Who supports LGBTQ people, has not thrown trans people under the bus, and identity was a big part of his campaign. People could see themselves in him who had been left out. And what does James Carville say? James Carville is actually saying that the message is make a very strong economic argument and finally put to bed any of this so-called identity or diversity politics. What an idiot. And the more Democrats listen to this, and the more mainstream Democrats punch left, what is the point of that? If you think that you are going to win back the Joe Rogan voters by pretending that you don't care about everybody, by punching at the weakest members of our society because they are being criticized, you win nobody back. Being badass and standing for what you believe in either wins respect from the people that you think don't like you. That's a byproduct. What it really does is bring out voters who think the party is weak. That is an actual fact. And so I just want to say to you, when I hear about that, when I see that, that, that there is this, Carville plan, I think I'm disgusted. And I also think, let me just say this other thing. I also think about James Carville that, and the whole punching left. I was so happy, partially with my senator, with Alyssa Slotkin, for being one of the 6 veterans who were encouraging people to not just follow orders in the military. I thought that was a good thing. And then I see that somehow she has decided, when she talks about Donald Trump and his incapacity, that she's going to criticize Joe Biden at the same time. And I know that she thinks, because her constituents are probably saying to her, Joe Biden was not, whatever their views are about Joe Biden, right? Don't do that. There's no need to criticize someone who is not in office, who actually, because they were talking about the economy, who actually improved the economy. Don't do that. Talk about, that's all about trying to, quote unquote, I think, win elections by showing you are a reasonable centrist. That's her whole theme, or many of the themes. I don't give a shit whether you're what you call yourself, how you want to position yourself. Tell people what you're going to do for them. Because when you call yourself a reasonable centrist, that you're going to make compromises with what has turned into a fascist party, that you're going to make compromises with people who took abortion rights away from people, that you want to make compromises from people who are fine with having ICE pull our neighbors away, having ICE arrest, including Americans, teenagers, and lock them up. If you are okay with making compromises with that, then you are that. So that, and also to tell the story, to repeat the story that people want people to get things done in Washington, and the only way to do that is with compromise. That's not at all a story you need to tell, because that's bullshit. The problem in our country is that the whole apparatus is very complicated, and the people who tend to get in power have a lot of money backing them, and they give goodies away to certain interest groups, and don't have a big theory of what a good society should mean, don't have the values or actually the strength of purpose to say, here are my goals for this society. How do we get to that? That's what I want. Not some abstract, I need to compromise to get what I want. Of course, we know you don't get everything you want, but are you moving toward the goal of less inequality, toward the goal of healthcare for all, toward the goal of a cleaner, more sustainable planet, toward the goal of safer pharmaceuticals and cars, toward the goal of true freedom for women in domestic, women and other, I guess, other people who are trapped in domestic situations with violence? What are you looking for? And if you talk about what you're looking for, instead of talking about how, instead of what essentially the centrists do, which is to say, those people, don't worry, vote for me, because don't worry, we're not going to make the tent so big to include those crazy people who want socialism. That vote should never have happened. The Democrats who decided to condemn socialism, what a stupid thing to do in the House. They should have just not shown up for the vote or abstained. It is a distraction. And people should be honest. Again, what is Social Security? What is FDIC insurance, but socialism. There is so much of it, and running from it is nonsense. As you know, I've always talked about how I believe private markets are good, but we need government oversight for balance. Some of these people, I don't know what they are thinking. I don't know. And maybe I just don't fully want to know. So let me now turn to what is going on the money front. As you probably know, we have a situation where, remember my old chart? I said, what did Donald Trump promise? Bring grocery prices down was his number one thing. Grocery prices are not down, and they're not down in large part because of the tariffs, the import taxes that people importing goods from foreign countries have to pay. The businesses who import things like coffee are now having to pay more. So now we are having to pay more. And so now Donald is going to lower the tariffs. And therefore, the prices apparently are going to go down. Now, you're going to die when you hear when Scott Bessent was asked about this. Oh, so does this mean that maybe tariffs actually, these import taxes made prices go up? What do you think he said? He certainly didn't admit it. He created a word salad trying to explain somehow, I guess, I think that you probably just need to see him on Meet the Press explaining this to Kristen Welker. Because Mr. Melting Wax Face, who is, when I look at him, I think of that uncanny valley situation. When you look, the uncanny valley is this concept when you take something like a robot or some sort of anime, something that you make so close to human, but it's not there and you feel really yucky. That's how I feel when I see Bessent. Okay, let's play this. This is again when he's asked about import taxes, tariffs, and if that's what caused prices, is that why prices to go up? Is that why Donald Trump is lowering them? Let's listen to our Treasury Secretary, because this is going to blow your mind. Okay, you ready? I'm ready. Maybe I should play it.
Tariffs. Since you were last on this program, the administration announced it was rolling back tariffs on more than 200 food products. You have said recently that you think tariffs help consumers. If tariffs help consumers, why is the administration rolling them back?
Well, first of all, Kristen, if you look at the data, that imported goods, the inflation has actually been flat. Inflation is up because of the service economy and services, so that has nothing to do with tariffs. And many of the food items where the inflation is coming down, the USTR has been working very hard on trade deals, and the trade deals that have been in the works for 6 or 8 months coincide with many Latin American, Central American countries where the foodstuffs you just named come from.
Well, and banana prices are up almost 7%, coffee prices up nearly 19%. Isn't the fact that you're rolling back tariffs an admission that ultimately they do drive up prices for consumers?
Kristen, how much does your arm weigh?
That I do not know.
Exactly, but you know how much you weigh. You get on the scale every morning. Inflation is a composite number, and we look at everything. So we try to push down the things we can control.
How much does your arm weigh? You ask a woman about her weight on television, and then you say you get on the scale every day? First of all, no. Nope. But he's trying to say inflation is a composite number. So maybe your arm is one factor. Maybe your arm is a tariff. So now you're saying cut off her fucking arm. Where are you going with this? Let's continue with this.
Control. And as I said, that we are working on The energy prices are down, and everything flows from that. And I think we're going to see these other prices.
Um, guys, guys, I don't know about you, but that wasn't an answer, but it gets better. Okay, so obviously, what he's saying is the tariff was like, you put those weights you can wear when you exercise around your ankles? He's like saying, on your arm, we put a giant 5-pound weight, which was the tariffs. And now if we take the 5-pound weight off your arm, you're going to weigh 5 pounds less. But that's not the case when it comes to things like coffee. It's more like you put a 20-pound weight on your arm. I'm not going to do the math. I don't really care how much he weighs, but the point is, what the fuck, man? But there is more. Oops, I'm throwing the F-bombs. I was trying to get better. He has another plan, right? If you don't like how expensive the cost of living is, it's on you, mother. I'm not going to say the whole thing. It's not on Donald Trump. It's your fault. Blame the complainer. Let's listen to what he has to say about what you can do. You're going to love this one.
Kristen, I can tell you that the Council on Economic Advisors has a study. You know the best way to bring your inflation rate down? Move from a blue state to a red state. Blue state inflation is 0.5% higher, and that is because they don't deregulate, they keep prices up, energy is higher.
Okay. So Welker does have a response for that, but can I just say to you, what a complete douchebag this guy is. You're going to get up, if you're struggling to buy groceries, you suddenly have the capacity to move to a different state, find a job, find housing, find a support system and family. The sarcasm, it oozes. Okay. And he's trying to, again, first he's blaming you for living in, not moving. And he's trying to blame Democratic governors. Okay, let's see what else, what Welker says to him.
Consumer prices, inflation was at 2.3% back in April. In September, 3%. But let me ask you about tariffs, because there's this big announcement on tariffs. Since
Kristen, I can.
Okay, so who knows what study he did, and also, how do you define a state is red or blue? Is it based on who the governor is? How the legislature is? I don't fully know what he's talking about, but so that's where they are on grocery, right? On immigrants, this is Donald Trump's, we're just checking in on him. On immigrants, we know that people are very unhappy about what's happening with ICE. We've seen several court cases recently. For example, that DC, the bringing of the National Guard in there was unlawful. We've got cases going up to the U.S. Supreme Court. Plus, on grocery and tariffs, right? We have that case. Before the United States Supreme Court. It's already been argued. Cutting taxes on billionaires and corporations. Yes, he's trying to do that. So far, he's not bringing down your personal taxes because, tariffs are essentially creating a tax for you. Yes, January 6th, he has pardoned those people, not just the 1,500 violent convicted federal felons, but also he has pardoned his co-conspirators who were involved in the fake elector schemes and so on, right? So far, the only things he's been successful at isn't helping people, it's hurting people. It's easier to punch and destroy than it is to build and help, unless you want to build and help. But again, you look, pardons for violent insurrectionists and conspirators and violently rounding up and trying to deport immigrants. He's done that. What about how has your life been made better? Well, taxes aren't lower for us, but taxes will be lower for the billionaires and corporations because of the budget bill he has passed. Um, what That's a fact. I hope you know that they're blaming immigrants also for lack of for jobs and prices being high. What else has he done? Yes, he has started to prosecute his enemies. Again, he likes to hurt people. That James Comey case is not going well for him. You know that. And he said he was going to end wars. He claims he's ended 8 wars, but we're on the cusp of maybe a ground invasion in Venezuela. So, like I said, this sadistic, angry, simpleton, authoritarian, lame duck, rapist loser hurts people. He doesn't help people. That is a fact. And speaking of this, speaking of hurting people, I've got a couple more things before the end of the show and before Crazy Town. Let me share with you. Let's talk about Epstein files. Where are they? Apparently, they're not out yet. Don't know what's taking so long, but I will tell you what we have seen so far, as you know, are the records released by the Epstein estate. And apparently more and more of these records keep coming out. I don't know if there was a new drop recently, but I do know that Representative Melanie Stansbury was on MS Now this weekend talking about spending a lot of time, or her staff did, looking at these files. And there are things that she has seen in them. And by the files, I mean from the Epstein estate. There are things that she has seen in these files that we haven't been talking about. Let's play this.
With you guys, I actually went through the files this weekend in depth. Donald Trump is not only named over and over in them, it is discussed this trial in which he was accused of raping a 13-year-old at Epstein's house. There is extensive discussions about a subpoena of Donald Trump in one of Jeffrey Epstein's cases in which he was accused for rape and sexual abuse. He was subpoenaed and gave a deposition in that case. There is extensive discussion between Donald Trump, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Mr. Wolf about not only Trump coming to his house, but Epstein says in these emails that he has photographs of Trump with girls.
Okay, I didn't realize the case in which Donald Trump was accused of raping the 13-year-old girl who goes by the pseudonym of Katie. I didn't realize that was mentioned in those files. Of course, we have seen that here on our timeline. So that's there. Now, I would say that as we wait for those files, I want the focus, as you know, always to be on the survivors. And I want to think about a world in which we protect people. We don't seek to harm them or exploit them, especially children and young adults. And which brings me to one of the most important things happening in the news that you may have just heard of. So this relates to Meta, the company formerly known as Facebook. And what you might not know is that there are many lawsuits, and by many, I mean thousands of lawsuits brought against social media companies, including against Meta for their role in the mental health crisis. And we're talking about we're talking about 3 strands of cases. So to be clear, there is something called multi-district litigation in federal court in Northern California. So let's call these the federal cases against social media companies. And the federal cases that are consolidated, there's over 2,000 of them. And those have been consolidated in this federal court under Judge Rogers. And that is supposed to go to trial this coming summer, so summer of 2026. And this is a multi-district litigation where when it turns out there are thousands of cases, the idea is to have them consolidated in one federal court where that judge picks some exemplary or example cases, pulls out a few, I don't want to call samples, but they will choose a certain number of representative cases in order to make it easier so that you don't have to have every single plaintiff, every single parent who is bringing a case have to go through the same discovery process, have to hire their own lawyers, and so on, right? So there's that. There's also, just to be clear, just to be clear on this, we're talking about 2,172 social media lawsuits. These lawsuits are all consolidated as the social media addiction cases, and these are set to go to trial next summer in Northern California. The reason why this is in the news, and I'll tell you a little bit more about those cases in a moment. The reason why this is in the news right now is a filing was unsealed just this weekend, I think, or just on Friday. A filing was unsealed, a filing in that big multi-district litigation in Northern California where there's 2,000 plaintiffs was unsealed. And this was something the plaintiffs were saying that Meta did, right? That Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook company, that they had performed some kind of study. And in this study, they had come to find out that it was what was happening. What was happening here, and I'm going to share this with you, that they had engaged in a study, the Mark Zuckerberg's company, that showed a lot of harm to kids. And one thing that they showed was when kids deactivated, they did a study to say that their well-being improved. And when they did this study, they decided to bury it. Now, of course, they are arguing that, oh no, that's not what happened. That, this was a bad study, and we just didn't think it needed to move forward. So I want to share this with you. There is a reporter, Jeff Horowitz, who's been covering Meta for Reuters, and he has, I'm going to share this with you. He has kind of covered what happened here. So before I dive into the weeds on this, again, 3 different sets of cases. So these 2,100 plus cases brought by family members and so on, by ordinary individuals in federal court, have all over the country in federal court, have been consolidated into this one judge's chambers and will go to trial probably in the summer of 2026. There are other cases, some state law cases that have been brought by state law cases brought against social media companies that are going to trial in Los Angeles. And that's going to happen in January or February of this year. These will be the first cases. And these cases are also against Meta and Google and Snapchat and so on. And these argue about a mental health crisis. Now, these are in state court under Judge Carolyn Kuehl. And they will, they will move forward. Now, she has selected these, they call them bellwether cases, these sample cases with 3 plaintiffs then those will go to trial in January, February. That's the plan. So that's a second strand. There's a third strand of cases brought by state attorneys general, also in California. And that was filed by 33 states, 9 attorneys general. And these were, again, about 42 cases. So those are the 3 strands that are going on. What's important, though, is this most recent revelation about Meta, again, Facebook, harming kids. So let me share that with you right now. Okay, I think I can blow this up so you can see it better. So this is this journalist who has been covering this for Reuters. And so this is a school district litigation. So this is one of the cases. Okay, and so let me just show you the headline here. From this weekend, from yesterday, Meta, from this morning actually, Meta buried causal evidence of social media harm, U.S. court filings allege. Okay, and this is one of these lawsuits brought by the U.S. school districts against Meta. Okay, so here we go. So the defendants here are Meta, Snapchat, TikTok, and YouTube. And here we go. We have, this is the key thing. In 2019, Meta did causal research looking at the effects of randomly asking Facebook users to stop using the platform for a month. After the first week of the study, results showed that leaving the platform was good for people's mental health. Meta then shut the project down. Here he adds, to Meta's disappointment, pilot tests of the deactivation study confirmed that people who stopped using Facebook for a week reported lower feelings of depression, anxiety, loneliness, and social comparison. And one Meta employee warned, if the results are bad and we don't publish and they leak, is it going to look like tobacco companies doing research and knowing cigs were bad and then keeping that info to themselves? Okay, yeah, it could sound like that. So that was pretty groundbreaking. And people are questioning how much more of a cover-up of the harm to kids of social media addiction, how much more there is. And so it will be interesting if these cases go to trial. Hold on, I just want to see 1 second where this, it will be interesting if these cases go to trial. What I'm not entirely sure, where the school districts, I think the school district cases are part of the multi-district litigation. I think it's wrapped up in these 2,000 cases, but it's hard. I think let me just make sure that that is the case or not. So I think this is the U.S. judge chose 6 school districts as test cases in these social media cases. And I just, I think this is the federal class action lawsuit. I am pretty sure this is the one that is going to trial this summer with Judge Rogers. And yes, it's Judge Gonzalez Rogers. And it looks to me like that is part of the federal court case that may go to trial this summer. So as we think about, again, how we want the society to be, what government regulation should look like, I think we need to find that balance. I think protecting kids and young adults now is important. Now, I want to add one more thing before the show ends. One of the defenses in the state case that's going to trial in January that failed, this was in California, against these social media companies. They argued that Section 230 of the Telecommunications Act protected them from every lawsuit. And their argument was, well, the reason why in these cases maybe kids were depressed or committed suicide, these terrible things, that it's because of the content and they're not responsible for it. And what the judge said there was, well, she said with some of these claims, that's the case. This content went up and then you took it down. I think it came down when it could, but that's not your responsibility. But what possibly is your responsibility that's not shielded by the Telecommunications Act are the algorithms, the methodology the platform uses to drive certain kinds of information to users. That now they are, it's not just publishing a newspaper with ads in it. It's not just being a or let me say it differently. The newspaper with ads is, let me just say that's not the example. It's not the telephone company where if I get on the phone and plot someone's murder, that person can sue the phone company because they let me get on the phone, right? And I would never do that. This is more like the phone company taking my phone call, encouraging someone to target a certain person and giving it to 5 million people, right? So that's what they're trying to argue here. So there's lots going on in these cases. I think they are pretty interesting. Now, guys, one last thing I've got for you here, which is a crazy case about a guy who worked at Turning Point USA, who was always accusing Democrats of election fraud. And you won't believe what happened next. This is a Turning Point leader, former GOP rep, pleaded guilty to attempted election fraud. And the story here is, his name is Austin Smith. He pleaded guilty on Monday to what he previously called ludicrous charges that he'd forged more than 100 signatures on his petition for re-election. One of the things he was accused of is actually having a dead person sign onto this petition for his re-election. Okay, so what do we know? Although handwriting analysis is not a perfect science, you don't need to be a handwriting expert, as my friend Adam Bonin notes here, to see what went down here. So this is an example of the alleged forgeries that he pleaded guilty to. These are people who supposedly signed up and provided their addresses to get him on the ballot. And if you look at this is exactly, looks like it's written by the same person, whoever the person is, in the same handwriting. I don't know how you could see this otherwise. Also, it's like these street numbers, all in the same place, as if he was going door to door and people signed up for this. So that was not great for him. Now, my friends, let's talk about Crazy Town. I do think that we deserve a little laughter. Now, here's what we're going to look at. Our laughter is going to take two parts. This is Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins confronted by Fox News about the fact that farmers are losing $9 billion in net income. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at that for a little craziness, my friends. It is laughable. Here we go. I guess I have to play this for you. Sorry, guys.
Farm income is forecasted to fall by about $9 billion, a 6% decline from 2024. Joining us now is the U.S. Agriculture Secretary, who has her hands full on a daily basis, Brooke Rollins. Great to see you, Madam Secretary. Could you tell me what's in this deal, or what you're capable of telling us? Because I know it's a week away.
Well, here's what I would say is that we are still confirming all the formulas. Every day is different, the numbers coming in. But I want to take a step back, if you don't mind. When we talk about our farmers, this is the backbone of America, right? This is the pioneer spirit that made this country so great. Only 2 of every 10 years do farmers actually make money. And that's an astonishing number. Any other business, you wouldn't have a lot of people stick around. But these men and women are they just feel this righteous work to feed and fuel the country is so important. Then you combine that with the years under Joe Biden, with the cost of inputs, interest rates went up 73%, labor 47%.
Okay, so she wants to. This is the blame Joe Biden, but the craziness gets worse with these people. Like she's actually blaming Joe Biden. Really? Okay, so there is, of course, more to this, right? More laughable, something that is even more laughable. Donald Trump trying to, again, convince Americans that these tariffs, which are destroying the farmers, are actually helping them. Let's play that. We've got Maria Bartiromo here on with our Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick.
The president is also working on this potential proposal to send out checks of $2,000, dividend checks. And, there's an analyst I spoke with over the weekend who believes that it's unlikely unless we see a second reconciliation package passed in 2026. What's your expectation, Secretary, in terms of a second reconciliation bill or a standalone $2,000 check program to go out?
Look, the tariffs are an American policy. The president wants the American people to understand how great tariffs are for them. And so one of the ways to prove to the American people how great tariffs are is to have them share in a part of 1 year's income.
Really? Bribing Americans? Yeah, that will do it. Let's try this now. Let's do just one more absolute crazy town. You heard that RFK Jr., this is absolutely crazy, decided to, despite his promises, put up indicators that vaccines are not safe. And it is an absolute joke from one of the doctors in the Senate, Senator Cassidy, refusing, even after all of this, to denounce RFK Jr. It is, I should laugh, but I really should boo. Let's play it.
Because RFK Jr. promised you that he wouldn't do this. Here is an exchange you had with him during his confirmation hearing.
If the data is brought to you, and these studies that have been out there for quite some time and have been peer-reviewed, and it shows that these 2 vaccines are not associated with autism, will you ask, no, I need even more? Or will you say, no, this, I see this, it's stood the test of time, and I unequivocally and without qualification say that this does not cause autism?
Not only will I do that, but I will apologize for any statements that misled people otherwise.
Thank you.
Dr. Cassidy, he lied to you.
Well, first, let me say what is most important to the American people. Speaking as a physician, vaccines are safe. As has been pointed out, it's actually not disputed. It's actually quite well proven that vaccines are not associated with autism. There's a fringe out there that thinks so, but they're quite a fringe. President Trump agrees that vaccines are safe. And if you look at the consequences of not taking vaccine, there's 2 children dead in West Texas from not taking a measles vaccine. There's a woman pregnant who lost her child because she was exposed to someone who did not have the measles vaccine. There's children in my state who've died from things like pertussis recently.
And so, why not say, yes, he lied to me? Why are we allowing this man to be head of Health and Human Services? What does Cassidy think would happen to him if he grew a spine? What a joke. Okay, my friends, I will see you tomorrow morning on time, bright and early. And thank you all, as always, for your support on this show. If you have a moment, please follow or become a subscriber. It's free and it makes all the difference. Thank you so very much.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Jen Taub Show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There was hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Jen Taub Show.